We are at Climate Healers 26 Vegan Convergence of the Peoples, and I'm very pleased to introduce to you Dr. Sujata Govada. Welcome and take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Dr. Sailesh Rao, whom I've known for a long, long time, many years from school, I would say. And it's amazing the amount of work that's done by climate healers and everybody on this conference. I could see even our last speaker, the passion that everybody shares. I'm just thinking, when will it be when the whole world will be equally passionate? I think that is the problem. Is not too many people are paying attention to what is important, and I'm actually it's my honor to be speaking at this event for the first time. And I'm actually, just to introduce myself a little briefly, I'm the CEO and founder of UDP International and also the founding director of the Institute for Sustainable Urbanization. And I've been based in Hong Kong for the last 32 years. Currently, I'm in San Francisco. Just went for a walk in the morning while listening to the all the talks to Presidio, and it was a beautiful day out. But coming to the topic, today what I'll be talking about is From Plates to Planet B, Rethinking Our Diets, Cities, and Sustainability. And I know a lot of you know about the issues in the world, but to me, what is a bit saddening is, in spite of all this effort, when you look at this where we are as a world from 1961 to 2023, meat consumption has still doubled. And you can see very few countries which are, on the low side, which is India is one of them, parts of Africa and other places. But even in India, I'm alarmed by that people actually tend to do a lot more, have a lot more meat consumption than before. And when I was growing up as a child. So I think we have a long way to go still. And part of it, I think, is because people don't connect the dots between different aspects of what is actually causing all this. And if people pay attention, and I think they will be much more willing to change. And also, it's probably mind-boggling for people who are used to uh, eating meat to suddenly change and become vegan. So that's another difficulty, I think, people face. But there is a lot of demand for, food production is very important. And where I come from in Hong Kong, I think 90% of the food is kind of imported from outside, which is also not sustainable. But we find that, as Dr. Sailesh Rao has presented so many times, that maximum is impact is from agricultural land that is, catering towards livestock and meat, production. So I think we know, and even when people see like graphs like this, where you see that the lower end, which is all more plant-based, is hardly any impact on the greenhouse gas emissions, but you have beef, lamb, and all these others are much higher. Still, my question is, why do people ignore it? And to me, I can't understand, because I've been a vegetarian all my life. And maybe thanks to Dr. Sailesh Rao, I would say maybe last 20 years, both my husband and I have been vegan. And for him, I think more difficult because he changed from meat eating to vegan, but for me, from vegetarian to vegan. So we give credit to Dr. Sailesh Rao for opening our eyes and making us get there. But if you look at the statistics, climate change, everybody's talking about this for a long time, and still somehow the change seems to be very slow. And this is something that we need to ask ourselves why. And even if you look at deforestation, right? Maximum is because of animal industry. And we know that, and yet even at government, at policy level, people almost ignore that there is a problem. And to me, that is, I don't understand why this continues to happen, and something needs to change the way we talk about it. And even if you look at the water, uh, stress, it's all related to the animal uh, production. I think, and biodiversity loss, that's another thing, which actually this thing, biodiversity, is talked about in the urban planning part. I'm actually an urban planner, urban designer, and architect. And in our circles, biodiversity loss and everything is talked about, but again, not associated with food consumption. So it's kind of this, I think, gap or this disconnect is what I think is causing a lot of the problems. And I think we need to really connect the two. And even when you talk about the environmental and planetary impacts, they're enormous. We are experiencing it like climate change, the extreme temperatures, uh, unpredictable weather. It still is something that people are ignoring. I think if you look at chronic disease, right, health and social impacts, a lot of these actually arrive from animal products, but also I've heard of many individual cases where people have told me about that they have changed vegan because of health reasons, and actually they are much better and healthier. And but I think these stories maybe are not heard enough. Only recently I came across an article, a research, which actually actually is people are you know understanding. Like, I like to give you an example. I go at many, I mean, I've talked in many places. I'm quite active, vocal, and everything. And usually when I go, I'm the only one who's vegetarian in the conference, say, or maybe even vegan now over the last 20 years. But once in Shanghai, I met this mother and daughter who are actually both vegan. So I was very surprised because we're sitting at a dinner and that other people who are also vegan in addition to me. That was very interesting to me. And I asked them why. And the story that they told me is that the lady's husband, she's actually a professor, was a professor, I think she's retired now, at Duquesne University in Chicago, Italian. They actually eat meat, I think, every day from breakfast, cheese, everything is very dairy and meat oriented. But the husband was really not well. And the doctor told him that if you want to live, you need to really, only option is you need to become a vegan. And to do that, he actually went and asked his wife, to be vegan with him because otherwise he can't handle it. And also asked another friend of his because they follow the same diet. And so all four of them, two couples, went vegan. And 6 months later, all his medical conditions were, neutral. So everything without any medication. So these kind of individualized stories we hear a lot. And I think more people need to hear this, and it needs to become an everyday association for people to really understand the importance of this. But when you look at the transition that is happening, thanks to people like Dr. Sailesh Rao and all of you on this event over here, veganism is growing, plant-based markets are improving, but also it's the number of searches, say, on Google or something is actually a lot more, as you can see from data. And I think the top areas are like Israel, Australia, UK, Austria, New Zealand. India is like, something naturally, they've like for decades, they've been more Hindu tradition has been more ahimsa based. So it's actually less meat oriented, but what I'm told from my own experience, it's actually changing the other way around. But if you look at the plant-based market, also there is more sales, but I think still the needle is not there. I think Sailesh Rao knows that it needs to get to a certain point for it to really become huge. And I think we are not there yet. And a lot of vegan campaigns, like, example in UK, Veganuary, like, is making efforts, and many speakers today with their events, organizations that they actually help promote this are working really hard to make it happen. And I've been to numerous sustainability conferences where food is not mentioned at all. And that, I think, again, is something is mismatch. And if you look at Hong Kong, it's I saw a presentation by somebody who boasted by the fact that Hong Kong is the most meat eating city in Asia or the world. And I couldn't believe when he was saying that as though it's the best thing. But if you look at this chart, you still see Hong Kong beef consumption per capita is very, very high, less than maybe other countries in the West like US, but still in Asia, it is still higher. And thanks to individuals, again, I think it's the people that make a difference. Francis Nye, whom I know quite well, who's actually an investment banker that has, become himself vegetarian then vegan, and he started this thing about Green Monday, getting people to adopt like at least once a week a vegan diet. And then he came up with the Green Common, Kind Kitchen, and is also the one who started the Omni Pork and got McDonald's to adopt that. And you find that in Hong Kong, at least there's about 3% full-time vegans. I think even in Hong Kong, finding vegetarians would be difficult, but you do have. And 34% actually claim they adopt at least a vegan diet once a week. And I think that's another way to get people to slowly transition. And even they call it flexitarian, that means mostly vegan, but sometimes they might eat a little bit. But if you look at the restaurant in Hong Kong, there are many more coming. I really thought that Hong Kong would be the last place to start, vegan menus. But actually, there is quite a play. Many restaurants have a vegan menu, but also many restaurants are increasingly becoming more fully vegan friendly and fully vegan, which is a good change. But if you look at the traditional cultural history of Hong Kong, there is a Buddhist tradition, and about 14% of the population actually identify as Buddhists, and they eat more vegetarian food first and 15th of the month, following the lunar calendar. And in India, I think it would be more like Ekadasi, where we would actually fast every 15 days. But the one of the oldest vegetarian restaurant in Hong Kong is about 100 years old, Tung Fong Sui, as shown here. So there is this tradition. It's deep rooted, and this is the Green Monday movement that, I think when they did a survey only in 2014, only 17% knew about it. When Omni Pork was launched, which is like your Beyond Meat version, and then 46% of the population are more aware. And also this whole thing about flexitarian grew from 5 to 35%. But interestingly, even for me as a vegetarian turned vegan, it is still difficult to have in restaurants vegan food because it is always imitating meat, because it's trying to get people who are meat eating to change to vegan. So I end up cooking at home. And I'll tell you one incident where on a wedding anniversary, we actually booked for my husband and myself in a restaurant. And I kind of said, no mushrooms, because I don't eat mushrooms also, because they're fungi. And then I said, no fake meat. And immediately the lady called me and said, don't come, please, because we cannot serve you. And she said they had 14 vegan items on the menu, which is a famous tea house in Hong Kong, but everything had either mushrooms or fake meat. So that's another thing that, it's not vegetarian turned vegan friendly, but at least it's happening, which is good. And but why I wanted to touch this, because it leads to a lot of the, we picked on four crisis, polycrisis, like ecological crisis, personal crisis, institutional, and social. And I just wanted to go over each one of those a bit. The ecological crisis is as like everywhere else. It's warming faster, the planet rising seas, intensifying storms and high temperatures is, and people like during summers, there are many. Also, Hong Kong has a very large elderly population. So many elderly actually, some passed away because of the high temperatures. And the personal crisis is, I think, if you compare to places like in the West, maybe Hong Kong is not that bad, but still, for Hong Kong standards, overweight, obesity is still high, 54%, and hypertensive is around close to 30%, and diabetic is 8.5. I think India is even higher in diabetic. But it's also, these are diet-related diseases. And another thing is also the Gini coefficient, the inequity that exists in Hong Kong, in access for affordable housing, or even proper food is very high. And the Gini coefficient is 0.473, which is also high. And this is something that needs to be corrected. And institutional crisis. There are a lot of things that people have embarked on, like net zero. They want to go into investing into a sustainable future, financing net zero. So that means the government policies are geared towards this, making sustainability more inclusive. But none of these actually look at food. And that is the mismatch. And I think that's a problem that Hong Kong needs to correct. And if we look at like veganism as as a poly solution, on an ecological level, if we promoted more vegan diets, obviously, the greenhouse gases will be reduced, pollution, the carbon footprint, everything could become less. On a personal level, plant-based diets will, as we know already, it's been documented, lower chronic diseases, And on a social level, because of the food system requires less land for this to feed the same amount more people, you could feed more people and also cut down the hunger and the inequality that exists. On an institutional level, I think this whole thing about ahimsa and nonviolence, like one of the speakers mentioned, and ethics needs to come in. And economics and governance is also something that needs to uh, look at how to promote more plant-based diets and not go after animal agriculture to make people more environmental stewards of the place. And I tried to get Dr. Sailesh Rao to a big conference in Hong Kong coming up in September. They call it Rethinking Sustainability, Everything. Again, food is not part of that conference. I tried to get him, and he was willing to actually pay for his own trip to come there, still didn't receive enough. So I think Hong Kong still needs to learn a lot. How can planning deliver this? And this is the institute I set up like my 10 year, more than 10 years, 12 years now, called the Institute for Sustainable Urbanization, because I feel everything is connected. And when we did research on smart city, and we came up with this smart and sustainable city framework where we're talking about smart thinking. So if basically, I think half the problem is people are not thinking, and if they put their thinking hat, all the information that is available, I think it won't take too long for people to change and go on a more plant-based diet. But people are not thinking or not connecting the dots. So I think smart thinking is important, good planning and design, but also focusing on people, place, and planet. Planet is including, not harming animals, making sure that we are environmentally friendly. Technology can be an enabler, but it cannot be the answer for everything. So you can't have like a bad policy planning network and everything, and suddenly you just say technology can solve all the problems. It can help, but you have to have the right foundation before. And also, it should be what we do needs to be purpose driven, long term value, engaging the community. That's why I think the program that Dr. Sailesh mentioned about around food, together around food, I think is important, because engagement and empowerment, I think, is the key, and also inclusive and transparency. Whatever the policies that people come up with at the city level needs to be like that. So mobility is important, and because accessibility is important. Environment, where food becomes part of it, and also smart living. Then infrastructure, the governance also include food as part of the policy, and then economy. Then you can promote and make it much better. I think there are some cases like in New York City where they've actually implemented in plant-based diets, and like not only in public schools but hospitals, and seen a big change in not only the health but also the cost and emissions and satisfaction rate. Other places like in Europe, in Milan, they've come up with 6 action items, not only in governance, sustainable diets, but related to food as well. And this is something that needs to happen to really change it. India, as I mentioned, is primarily more vegetarian, but I feel it's actually turning the other way around. And this is something, and I really believe in India, for people to go vegan probably might be the last place. It needs to happen in the West and then come to India, because even when I go and I'm at meetings, when they offer me tea, milk tea, and I'm politely saying no with biscuits and tea. And there's one gentleman asked me, so somebody tells you not to breathe air, will you stop breathing? He thought that I was so ridiculous about saying I cannot have milk, tea, and biscuits because they're all they're not vegan. So that is the mindset in India, and I think things need to change much more than that. They can be vegetarian, but going vegan is more difficult. I think in conclusion, I think from plates, I think we need to think about it. It's not just a fad or a lifestyle change, but actually an ethical responsibility and also our duty to actually look at what we are putting on our plates and eating, and then look at the systems thinking, which Dr. Sailesh Rao is talking about, how food production and everything actually impacts everything else, and look at how the policies in the cities actually need to take this into account, and for us to transition towards Planet B. If there is a will, we can do it. And I think getting there to get that reasoning, I think, is the key. And we are not there yet, but I think the more and more, one of the things I try to do whenever we have events, try to offer, no need to mention to people it's vegan food or anything. I just only serve vegan food and then people are fine with it. So I think this is something needs to be done. And I think it'll take a long time, but I hope it can be shorter than that. But for Hong Kong, one of the things that they can do, there are a lot of initiatives happening like through NGOs and everybody, like the community gardens, the roof farming, the food rescue programs, healthcare. They're all happening separately. Like universities are also having vegan restaurants and more vegan food, but I think they're not connecting all the dots. So this is something needs to be done. But also, these are the opportunities because Hong Kong is very well connected publicly. So it's like with public transport, accessibility is not a problem. So we could have 15-minute food environments. They could even implement public procurement leverage and shift diets at a scale, like when schools and hospitals and start that. And also there is a cultural history behind from a Buddhist standpoint that it is the right thing to do. And they have all these smart blueprint, climate action change, but they do not focus yet on the food. And that is something that needs to happen. But the good thing about Hong Kong is it's quite vocal and people can make a difference. And I think with that, I hope, we can strive towards making a change, not only in Hong Kong, but elsewhere in the world. And if we don't, I think the risks are just continue high intake, very important, dependent, especially for Hong Kong. And no, a lot of food is wasted, but there is still a lot of inequality and food insecurity that happens. So I think policymakers need to wake up and tie city planning and design to how we set our plates and what we eat, because that not only impacts health, but also with health, when you are more healthy and you're able to have a healthy lifestyle, you actually cut down resources on healthcare and all the other aspects. And if you have an active lifestyle, again, it would be, and if you're closer, especially for an urban dense city like Hong Kong, being closer to nature becomes important. And I think this is something that needs to be promoted. And I hope we at ISU can work much more to make things like this happen. Okay, with that, I think I would rather take more questions from the audience rather than just use up the airtime. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. That was wonderful. Yes, wow. So as an architect and cities planner, I'm wondering about one of the how to bring in the food aspect. As an architect, I'm thinking of persons looking at the buildings and the environment around them, but it's the food outside of that environment, the shrimp and beef that is imported into that small area. And so this is what you're doing. You're calling attention to the food that comes into a system or a city. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, like, I haven't, I mean, fully promoted and said, okay, this is my only area, because I work on a lot of areas like heritage conservation. There's so many areas part of the city planning and design efforts. But I think one of the things what I try to do here is show we know all the facts, we know everything, but then people are not able to do because they're not connecting the dots. And this is the issue. And if you take even the sustainability, like, somebody was talking about in the previous sessions, head of sustainability, and you find those people, to me, they all should be vegan to begin with, to call themselves sustainable, but they're not. And so this is what I'm talking about is you kind of shield that part away, you can truly not be sustainable. So I think it needs to be, people need to make an effort, and for things to change, it needs to change at multiple levels. So
Mhm.
you need to have this individual awakening. That means, like, if you do Vedanta, like, in the Indians, Hindu spirituality, it teaches you to be beyond yourself, your family, to your community, your nation, to the world, so that we are, and to all life, right? That is the transition. But when you put those, have that understanding, it just tells you that is the only thing, the only way to live. You don't want to do anything else. But I think people are not there yet. And that's where, to me, whenever I go to conferences or events or anything, where people are ignoring the food aspect and then calling sustainability and everything else, it is, they're not sustainable, actually. So that, I think that awareness should be raised. And I hope through our effort we could raise that. And that's why I wanted Dr. Sailesh Rao to come and actually present it. So what now I'm going to do, we will do a webinar like this and broadcast it into Hong Kong so people are get more aware of it. Because I
Beautiful.
think a government can make a difference. Policy change, right? If you say, okay, schools should all be serving only plant-based food. That's why I asked the question about animal rights, right? If you say in the world it's illegal, it's like a crime to actually kill and eat, then if that is already agreed, then people, especially maybe in your own house, you can do something and eat. Nobody will question you in your private area. But in public areas, they should not be doing it, right? So if you
That's
change that narrative, then I think we can make a bigger difference.
beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, everyone, raise your hands if you have a question or put it in the chat. And I see we have questions here. And so let's begin.
Okay, hi. Thank you, Dr. Gravata. Um, oh, are she coming back?
No, I'm coming back. My battery is on low. I'll just
Oh,
go to another
okay.
place and charge it. Please continue.
Okay. So we have two questions from Michael. The first one is, was the rise in animal consumption in India over the last several decades also been due to a change in messaging from India's authorities in the fields of nutrition and medicine, practitioners nudging in that direction? That's the first question.
Thank you.
Okay.
Basically, I think in India, probably when you look at the numbers, it is still not showing that India is actually going, fully meat eaten. But what I'm talking about, if you look at, say, restaurants, and, I know there's a big difference from 50 years ago to now, right? People do And what I'm alarmed about, which I think even I mentioned to Dr. Sailesh Rao, where I come from a state called Andhra Pradesh, which is like in southern India, and also Telangana, which is which is bifurcated as two states. And in India, I think it's only Rajasthan and Gujarat are two states that actually are with a larger percentage of vegetarians. And it was funny. My husband was asking me because he originally from a meat eating. I mean, but they used to eat once a week or once a month or something. But still, he asked what happened to all the Brahmins. That means all what happened to all the vegetarian people. Either they're changing because it's a fad that everybody else is eating meat, so they're eating meat. But the numbers, India will still look low in the world map, right?
Mhm.
But what is alarming is that it is still changing on a day-to-day basis. You go, the lesser number of restaurants that are, like, say, for me, if I'm vegan, I can go to New York and San Francisco and find a vegan place much easier than in India.
Okay.
It's kind of weird, but it is because you can get vegetarian food, but vegan is more difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a follow-up question, just one more from Michael. He says, I'm reading online that lower income persons in India consume more meat than ones with higher income. Is this true? Is this true there? And or for any other countries in Southeast Asia? I'm also reading here that India, for example, doesn't provide subsidies for animal farming and product operations directly. But the price of meat and animal foods have gone down a lot due to large-scale commercial operations. Any words on this?
I mean, I think more people are eating, but what I would say also that uh, poor people could not afford anything before. Like when we were growing up, maybe they would eat rice with a chili on it. That's it. No vegetables, nothing. But you can actually see all the working people, like poor people, actually being able to at least affording to buy vegetables and some amount. Meat is still expensive, I would say, for them, affordable to be affordable. But I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the data, but definitely in terms of production, I think there's much more. And I think India is, which I find it very ironical that they are exporting beef to other countries, which I would think you should not be doing it if you are India. Why would you do that when you're supposed to say beef, it's not good to consume beef? Then you should be true to yourself rather than, I think that's where the commercialization, being greedy about making money and forgetting about everything else, is something that makes people do wrong things. That's why I say smart thinking is important.
Wonderful. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
All right. So I see Allison is here with the question.
Yes, I'm here to ask you a question, Dr. Govada, about sustainable urbanization and in particular about urban green spaces. And so many large cities in the world are not like Singapore. They don't have ocean breezes on every side. Many of them have very little circulation of air much of the year, and they suffer from heat exposure and from pollution, air pollution. And one of the solutions in some cities that's also helping to deal with home houselessness is urban forests, food forests. And so I wondered, in your experience with urban or sustainable urbanization, if you see that as a potential trend that would be part of a poly solution because it addresses green spaces, it addresses air pollution, it addresses healthy food, to mention a few things.
I think open space is very important. I'm telling you, during COVID, where did we all go? To the open
To the
space,
beach.
right?
Yeah.
And so open spaces in a city are really, really important. And I think when you look at it from a spiritual angle, we are supposed to spend at least 1 hour in nature every day, okay, minimum. So the reason why all this is there is because when you go and you spend your time in nature, and we also talk in planning and design terms that the city needs to be walkable. Why is the city important to be walkable? Because you're making the person as the measuring, the way you measure. So if a person has to walk, the air pollution has to be under control, good quality air. It needs to be safer. You can't just put yourself in a car, close everything, air conditioned on, and just fly by. That is actually what has killed our cities, actually. So you need to be more transit oriented, more shared economy oriented, right? So that I can travel in Hong Kong. Sorry to say, I'm in the US. I used to live here before I studied
Yes.
in Virginia Tech. Hong Kong, I won't even think about safety because it's safe. I don't need to worry about it even at midnight, right? But when I come here, I still feel uncomfortable because people say, like I'm at my son's place near the Golden Gate Park. We went and enjoyed the walk today. And he says it's really good, but I don't feel comfortable enough to walk on my own. Maybe if I live here long enough, maybe I'll say, okay, it's okay, and then go out. So I think for a city, safety and having people as walkable cities is important because what that does, it makes you become much more active and you observe things more. So if you're closer to nature, then I think people will question everything. And even another thing about eating meat, right? People, if you're just going into the grocery store, looking at the packaged foods, you're not even thinking. I remember when I was growing up, my neighbors, if they would do chicken curry or something, they're literally slashing a chicken in front of the house. And that was like gory to me because the headless chicken would run some, distance before it fell down. Those kind of scenes, if people see, they will not eat. And even I remember there was a construction building that was half constructed. They would get all these goats, tear up, and and I looked at it, and I would say, why would people do this? And how many of the people who are actually meat eating think about all this? They don't know because they're just looking at packaged goods. So when you look at something as a product and you're not looking at where it is coming from, how it is coming from, you're not going to relate to it. So I think public space, to come back, is important because when you become more closer to nature, you will become questioning everything. Otherwise,
Yes. I'm looking at the picture in your background and I'm not seeing a lot of greenery. And, where I live in Lima, Peru, and Lima, Peru is desert. The entire coast of Peru is desert. And yet, there is a lot of greenery and it has to be watered regularly to maintain it. But we have a lot of parks and trees. But interestingly enough, the entire coast of the city has been expanded with probably mostly cement that's been removed from different projects, and they've expanded the coastline. And the entire reclamation, the entire coastline of the city is beautiful, beautiful parks, beautiful parks. So,
no, but I wanted to just tell you, Hong Kong is only 25% built. Rest of it is actually open.
wow.
And so, which is unusual for a city. That is why it is compact and heavy, dense development. But what that density does, is actually makes it much more vibrant and safer, and also actually good for public transit as well. So I think what we are saying is if Hong Kong can go vegan, any other place can go vegan. You know what I'm saying? If that, because it has all these extreme things happening in Hong Kong, because it's 90% taking food from elsewhere. So if you don't need to do all that, you're growing within the city, things might be different, right? So that I think that is what Hong Kong needs to be talking about.
They're all good questions. Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Thank you,
No.
Alice. We have
Thank
three
you.
more questions now, and I think Dr. Rao will be our last question for the day. So we'll start with Dr. Ort, Dr. Abraham Ort. If you'll come up, she'll bring you up. There you go. Hello.
Hello. I think you're on mute, Dr. Yeah.
Uh-oh. That was me trying to unmute you. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. No, I was very interested to hear your story about Hong Kong, because if you look at it in your background, it looks so filled up.
Yeah, but it's 25% only.
I would like to compare it actually with another country, like the Netherlands. It has a large population of people, and they actually want in that direction. They want to go into the direction of having high buildings. They did a very interesting study by an architect and the University of Leiden from sustainability. And they did an experiment to see what happened if everybody in the Netherlands would become vegan.
I know, I saw that report that Dr.
Yes.
Sailesh Rao shared with me.
Very interesting, because and everything turns out to be much better.
Yeah.
The farmers were much better, the economy was much better. And as it is now, we import in the Netherlands so much from outside, from Brazil, soya beans. And actually, in this new study, they could easily do it in Netherlands by itself and be completely independent of the rest of the world. So it's amazing difference what can happen, actually. So
actually, people don't talk about it, but actually meat is negative energy.
What do you mean with negative energy?
Energy. That means when your body, like, when you are more plant-based, you have more positive energy. And for a human being, we need more positive energy than negative energy. So if you have like a leather sofa and you're sitting on it, we used to buy when I was younger, we don't buy anymore because it's actually negative energy. When you want to do meditation and everything, you don't sit on negative places and do. So even consuming that food, if people talk about all this together, I think the movement, it'll happen much faster. People don't realize.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ort. Okay, and Emery, you have a question.
Yes, you're again mute. I think maybe Rebecca is trying to change.
There, we got it. We got it. Yeah, it's really hard to relate some of these things and figure out the answers of where to start when you're in a smaller town, an older town, and we do see a few efforts to do some vegan things, but again, it's usually like they said, using vegan meats or something like that. But near my town, it's all corn and soy for miles and miles and miles and miles, and that's for animal feed. And recently we had that lettuce poisoning,
outbreak,
and so all the lettuce was off the shelves, almost all of it. And I happen to know which lettuces were veganic. We do carry some in our local Walmart. There's one brand that's made in Pennsylvania that comes to Illinois, and so I knew that, but everybody else would still be just trying to fight over the California foods that are right next to factory, not factory farms, but like those holding where they feed them and fatten them up. I can't think what that's called right now, but in California, they're right next to where they grow lettuce, so all that manure just leaks into the lettuces. So I'm like, okay, in a little town like this, if I talk to the city, it's like, I just don't know. We have a couple of farmers that farm organically. But I kept thinking we should be able to somehow get some of these farmers to change to veganic farming, because people are concerned about chemicals. That's something that even the meat eaters, they're concerned about chemicals. And I thought, well, start telling them to grow veganically, their fruits and vegetables and their grains and all of that. But right then, a meat eater will argue about yield, that the farmers have to have yield, and I'm not up enough to know. I feel like veganic farming could have the same yield, but they said, no, you put one tree in there and it's going to mess up everything. And because they go corner to corner and they have machines that go back and forth like this, and so I feel like, oh, where do I start? But then listening to this, the place to start is to just be talking about veganism with people, to start there, because it's the big umbrella thing and everything else is underneath, I guess. But I kept thinking, even the city council, if I suggest things like planning for the future, we know we're going to be more plant-based in the future. We know that. So, you know, I guess it's almost like the usual planting seeds. Maybe that's all I can do at this point, is plant seeds in this town.
I think your question, engagement is important. And I think showing by action, like, getting more people, and I think people can make a difference. So it's like, two people, even like something like a beach cleanup in Mumbai. One guy started, got the whole beach cleaned up with other people. So I think if one person can do it, and you get more people, especially in a small town, I would say it would be good. And I think people like you then should actually go into where the decision makers are. So you become, even I tell architects, my students, don't just be designers, go into be in policymakers, because then you can change. So trying to work even inside the government to make the changes in decisions and making people think, I think is important. And maybe in a
Okay.
smaller town, it's probably you have less of this bigger city problems. It might be even easier even if you did it for a smaller thing. But I think Dr. Sailesh Rao probably can answer you even better.
Okay, I'm going to have to cut out. It's like an emergency. My dog has gone back to the back and is going to wake up my husband, and I'm supposed to be watching her. So
Oh,
I've got
sorry.
to, I've got to get off for tonight, or at least just get me out of the way somehow here. And I'm just going to go like this. Good.
Thank you. Sorry.
Jata, I had a question about what is the purpose of a city? Now, if you look at what is the goal of Planet B, it is to restore planetary health and achieve world peace. So then cities have to be built around that larger goal, right? Currently, all cities are built around extraction,
Yeah.
the extraction model.
Yeah.
So how would a city like Hong Kong transition if you change the purpose of that city?
I think, you know what, like Hong Kong has this, like, I think many cities have, many people think, oh, short-term gain versus long-term value. So if you're looking at like, long-term value as your goal, and what you're talking about is the long-term value, then thinking has to change, because the amount of development and everything. They're not thinking a lot of other things. Like, if you say you don't need to import a lot of meat and everything into the city, say, for example, a lot of those industries don't need to be there. And I think the problem people feel is, what do they do next if that is cut off? And I think so that's the fear people have, and it's all over the place. And I think it's like how AI is, everybody's questioning about AI, but you actually are finding out that you can actually, there are some benefits to it as well. How to use it properly is important. And I think cities, maybe the more, if you think more clearly, you probably will get to a model where you would have more smaller cities, more distributed, which because when COVID happened, right? None of these big shopping malls thrived. It was the little guys that were selling the vegetables nearby the neighborhoods actually made more money. And I remember even in India, there were engineers selling vegetables too, like who were educated, but at that time that was the thing to do. So I think if we really question everything, that's why smart thinking is important. A lot of the things we are doing, we will change the course over time. That means from a city point of view, there could be a lot of spaces that are unused or not needed, so that you need to adapt to different uses. So you don't need to keep building all this as though there is no tomorrow. So we could really become a much more truly sustainable, cities and communities. And I think cities should be of a lot of smaller communities coming together rather than these big agglomerations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rao, for coming up. And it is past time for us to close. So
Okay.
sorry, Jamin. I tell you what, I don't know if people will stay on after today, but I know it would be a very good discussion if you were here asking questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Govada. It was a very wonderful time. Now, if
Can I I want to hear the
you want to hear
question
Davis?
yeah, what
All right, Tammy, can you stay?
quick, yeah.
If Tammy can stay, then yes, let's do it. All right. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Govada, and thank you, BJ, and everyone and Tammy for allowing us to stick around. Paige, I see you're there as well. I think we're in the heart of a really important conversation here, and this actually overlaps. Dr. Govada, were you here at the very beginning of the day when we? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. You asked a question at the end. So, in terms of city planning, this is a really important piece here because, together around food, we're going to break out. We're going to break out into one big city somewhere, and whichever big city takes this on first is going to reap massive rewards.
Yeah.
They're going to become the capital city of ending world hunger and veganism and community. I was conceived in August 1967. I did the math because I was born in May 1968. 1967 was called the Summer of Love. I was conceived in the Summer of Love in the San Francisco Bay Area, right? Maybe that's why I'm so crazy as I am and proud and proud of it. Hey, so that that left a mark on San Francisco, a very positive mark. It became known as the progressive city, this and that. It then became the birthplace of the computer revolution, the gay rights revolution. I trust you've been to my hometown of the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm actually from the East Bay. Anyway,
James,
but the bottom.
let's go to the
Oh,
question.
let's go. Okay, so here's the point. Let's say Hong Kong is the first one to really embrace together around food. Number one, Everyone will be fed. It's not like the old industries of Hong Kong are suddenly going to disappear, right? This would be the birth of a whole new industry, and it would be an export industry because whatever city takes it on, Mumbai, San Francisco, doesn't matter. Whichever city takes it on is going to be, it'll be the birthplace of this whole new industry, really a set of industries, because we're going to be doing centralized production of food in a massive food factory, right, of gourmet whole food plant-based that then ships out. It'll ship out the goods cold. So like let's say a vegan lasagna, it'll build truckloads of vegan lasagna up to the point of sticking them in the oven, but they won't be baked yet. They'll be shipped cold in refrigerated trucks to the various distribution points, community centers, community cafes, etc. And then they'll be baked, and then they'll be served hot and fresh. That's just one example of one of the most complex dishes. So all of this is going to drive tremendous innovation in food preparation. We're going to completely eliminate packaging because we'll only be buying whole truckloads of produce, right? And grains and legumes and all that. And with zero waste, zero packaging, everything 100% reused. So think, stainless steel food trays with lids and everything that gets shipped cold, baked, and then. But my point is, it's going to be an economic boom for that city, and they will be exporting consultants to other cities to how to do this because all the health problems of the city will all but be eliminated. So many of the social problems, et cetera, et cetera. It'll be the beginning of a revolution of making basic human needs, basic human rights. And so as a city, as an expert, I mean, just with everything you said, Dr. Govada, I'd like to collaborate with you on making this dream a reality. So I put my email in the chat. I'll put it there again, and love to follow up on this. It says chat disabled. So if we can
I'll get it from Dr. Sailesh.
Perfect.
What I wanted to say,
yeah,
I think even then it has to start at a small place. So within the city, like you mentioned in Seattle, in one place, and then it becomes a success story. Then it needs to go to other places. But I really think the whole thing about dharma, spirituality also needs to come into it. Only then people will wake up. Right now, they're not connecting the dots. The majority are not. And that's why you see what's happening in the world. Anyway, sorry, I don't want to take any longer.
Thank you so
people
much.
Are tired. Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
Jamin, I know you have lots more to say. And what's wonderful is that we have Movement Mondays. We meet twice on the Mondays, in the morning and in the evenings, for more discussion. And we have more discussions tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation and your questions. Thank you, Dr. Govada. It was Govada. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
The earth is calling soft and clear, not with judgment, not through fear. She whispers through the wind and trees, remember who you're meant to be. We are not divided souls, but living parts of greater wholes. Every heart, every nation holds a piece of worldwide resolution. We have remedies beyond survival, beyond the stories of denial. 1,000 pathways join as one. The healing has already begun. We have the remedy for compassion revolution. reflect the peace we choose to breathe. Spiritual embodiment, a living sacred testament, not escaping from this earth, but honoring her endless work. Sacred restoration, hearing every generation, the birthright to existing in freedom, shared by every life beneath the sun. Beyond our borders, beyond our names, love burns brighter than our blame. From every culture, every shore, we discover what we're living.